When you hear the words Israel and Palestine, what comes to mind? An endless war, a complex political issue, or just another recurring headline on TV? But few people know that before maps, before politics, there was a story written in the Bible. A story that began with two brothers, Isaac and Ishmael, and from there, human history has never been the same. In today's video, we'll uncover what the Bible truly says about the origins of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Not through the lens of the news, but through prophecy, covenant, and bloodline. You'll see that what's happening today isn't new. It is the quiet unfolding of things foretold thousands of years ago. If you're interested in how the Bible connects with modern events, subscribe to our channel so you never miss a moment on this journey, because understanding the past doesn't just help you look back, it helps you see forward. The Bible doesn't begin with war. It begins with a promise. A divine covenant from God to a man named Abraham. A man whom God called to leave his homeland, cross the desert, and enter a strange new land that we now call the Holy Land. In Genesis 12:1-3, the Lord says, "Leave your country. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you, and through you, all the peoples of the earth will be blessed." But from that promise came division. Abraham had two sons. The first was Ishmael, born to Hagar, an Egyptian servant. Then, in the miracle of old age, Abraham had a second son, Isaac, born to his wife, Sarah. The question was, who was the rightful heir to God's promise? According to Jewish and Christian scriptures, the covenant passed to Isaac, whose descendants became the nation of Israel. But in Arab and Islamic belief, Ishmael the firstborn is the forefather of the Arab peoples, including today's Palestinians. And both lineages believe they are the rightful heirs to the sacred land. Tragically, our modern-day conflict filled with missiles, refugees, and hatred began from a broken family. In Genesis 16:10-12, God did not forget Ishmael. He said, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count. He will be a wild man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him." This was not a curse. It was a prophecy. And today, it echoes like a forgotten voice from the pages of ancient history. So how did a promise become a war that's lasted thousands of years throughout the Old Testament? The land of Canaan, now Israel and Palestine, is described as the Promised Land. God made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and later Jacob, promising, "I will give your descendants this land as an everlasting possession." Genesis 17:7-8. To the Jewish people, this was more than a symbol. It became their national identity, their proof that they were the chosen people, destined to return after centuries of exile. But now, place yourself in the shoes of a Palestinian. They've lived on this land for thousands of years, through the Ottoman Empire, through the British Mandate. They do not see themselves as invaders. They see themselves as a people dispossessed of their ancestral home. To them, the creation of Israel in 1948 wasn't a miracle. It was a catastrophe, al-Nakba, when more than 700,000 Palestinians lost their homes, their land, and their roots forever. We are witnessing a tragedy with two faces. One side calls it the restoration of a promise. The other calls it the day of identity erasure. And both are right if you understand them from the heart, not just from headlines. Then comes Jerusalem, the sacred gem in the desert, a city that all three major religions revere as holy. To the Jews, it is the city of Solomon's temple. To Christians, it is where Jesus was crucified and resurrected. And to Muslims, it is where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven from the Al-Aqsa hill. Do you see it now? This is not merely a territorial war. This is a war of prophecies. Every stone, every wall, every inch of land carries a story, a dream, and perhaps even the divine purpose of the Most High, depending on one's faith. And for that very reason, all political solutions fall short. You cannot divide sacred land like a real estate contract. You cannot ask someone to give up Jerusalem as if it were just another capital, because to them, it is the heart of faith, the key to the end times, and the doorstep to eternity. You see it now. The Israel-Palestine conflict did not begin with bombs and barriers. It began with the Bible, with ancient words that, to this day, have no final chapter. And if you truly want to know what God has said, if you want to understand why the whole world seems to revolve around one tiny strip of land, then keep watching this video, because up next, we are diving into the prophecies of Ezekiel, Zechariah, and Revelation to see how Jerusalem is not just the epicenter of conflict, but the very center of God's redemptive plan for humanity. Still watching. If this is helping you see things more clearly, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We're not just studying history. We're learning how to read the signs of the times. If you've ever read the Bible, you may have passed right by Ezekiel chapter 37 without stopping. But if you look closely, you'll find something astonishing. A prophecy written over 2,500 years ago that seems to be unfolding in today's headlines. Ezekiel 37, the chapter of the dry bones. The prophet Ezekiel is taken by God into a valley filled with bones, bleached white under the sun. And God asks, "Can these bones live?" A question that sounds like a metaphor. Until you remember, Israel had been scattered, exiled to the four corners of the earth, and seemed to have vanished from history. But just as Ezekiel described, I will gather them from the nations and bring them back to their own land. I will make them one nation in the land of Israel. Ezekiel 37, 21-22. What do you see here? After nearly 2,000 years living among other nations, after concentration camps, after the Holocaust, in 1948, the nation of Israel was reborn, not by the words of a politician, but by the pen of a prophet exiled in Babylon, who wrote it down millennia earlier. And if you think that's the end, turn to the book of Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 12 warns, "I will make Jerusalem a cup that causes all surrounding peoples to reel, and all nations will gather against it." Sound familiar? Jerusalem, the sacred city of three major religions, is now the epicenter of global conflict. Israel claims Jerusalem as its eternal capital. Palestinians claim East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state. And the world is split: the US, the UK, the EU, the United Nations. None can take a decisive stance, because they know to touch Jerusalem is to touch the final line. Zechariah continues the warning: whoever tries to move Jerusalem will injure themselves. A simple image, yet deeply symbolic. Those who try to meddle with Jerusalem, whether for peace or politics, will be wounded. You might think this is just poetic language, but look at the Oslo Accords, the peace treaties, the Geneva and Madrid negotiations. All of them collapsed over one issue: who does Jerusalem belong to? And now, we come to the final prophecy, the most terrifying one. Revelation 16:16. Then the kings of the earth gathered together to the place that in Hebrew is called Armageddon. Armageddon, from the Hebrew Har Megiddo, is a real valley that exists in modern-day Israel. Not a metaphor, not a mystery. A physical location. You can find it on Google Maps. The book of Revelation describes this place as the gathering ground of the forces that will rise against God, leading to the final battle. And it all begins with the nations surrounding Jerusalem. Do you still remember the title of today's video? What the Bible really says about the origins of the Israel-Palestine conflict? Well now, you've seen it clearly. This conflict didn't begin in 1948. It began in Genesis. And it may end in Revelation, from the original promise to the endless wars. From the division between two brothers, Isaac and Ishmael, to the division between two peoples who both claim Abraham as their father. It's as if it was all written long ago, not to make us despair, but to wake us up. And now you may begin to ask, are we living in the final days of history? Will this conflict lead to the return of Christ, as Revelation foretells? Or does mankind still have time to repent, to reconcile, and to step into the promise of redemption? Imagine a war that doesn't just involve missiles, tanks, and nuclear plants, but one that carries thousands of years of hatred, prophecy, and sacred conviction. That is exactly what simmers beneath the surface between Israel and Iran. Israel, a small nation by land, but one that carries a divine promise from the Bible. Iran, a Shia Islamic power, formerly ancient Persia, with a vision of the Mahdi's return and a burning desire to erase Israel from the map. This is not just geopolitics. It is a collision between two prophecies, two sacred destinies, and two completely different futures: Iran and the prophecies in the shadows. Since 1979, when the Islamic Revolution overthrew the Shah and established the Islamic Republic of Iran, the slogan, "Death to Israel," has become national propaganda. Iran doesn't just see Israel as a geopolitical enemy. They see it as a religious adversary, an obstacle that must be removed to prepare the way for the arrival of Al-Mahdi, the Shia version of the awaited Messiah. According to many Shia Islamic scholars, the Mahdi will only appear in a time of great war, a global conflict that begins in the Middle East. And in that vision, Jerusalem will be the epicenter. This creates a paradox. The more intense the conflict becomes, the closer they believe the Mahdi's arrival is, which means war is not something to be avoided, but something necessary. And what about Israel? On the other side, many Jews and Christians believe Jerusalem, Israel, and the Third Temple will be central to the return of the Messiah. And any threat from Iran, especially a nuclear one, is not just a physical attack, but a spiritual defiance against God's plan. That's why Israel makes its stance clear. We will never allow Iran to possess nuclear weapons, even if it means preemptive strikes, even if it means acting alone, even if it means starting a war. The current situation has touched the fuse. Iran continues to enrich uranium to near weapons-grade levels. Israel persistently conducts assassinations of Iranian scientists and cyber attacks on its nuclear infrastructure. Hezbollah, Iran's proxy in Lebanon, possesses thousands of missiles aimed at Tel Aviv. Hamas, funded by Iran in Gaza, keeps up pressure from the southern border, and in the shadows, drone strikes, missile launches, and covert retaliations happen weekly, though rarely covered in Western media. This is no longer a threat of war. This is a silent war already underway. But what does the Bible say? In Ezekiel chapters 38 to 39, there is a prophecy about a great attack on Israel by a coalition of nations from the north, one of them named Persia, the ancient name for Iran. Many scholars believe this attack will be devastating, yet interrupted by divine intervention. I will bring you out with all your army, and I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur. Ezekiel 38:22. Whether you interpret this literally or symbolically, the image is striking. A massive war against Israel that results in supernatural intervention. So, is this the beginning of the end? Maybe we cannot answer that definitively. But clearly, as Israel and Iran move closer to direct conflict, as Jerusalem becomes humanity's ticking time bomb, as thousand-year-old prophecies begin to echo in the headlines, we must be awake, not to panic, but to realize God has already warned us, and hope is always there for those who put their trust in Him. You may be asking, so is the end really near? Will anyone actually win in a war between Israel and Iran? But before we drown in worry and breaking news, take a moment and hear this: God does not call His children to live in fear. He calls us to live with awareness. In Matthew 24, Jesus spoke clearly about the last days. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but do not be alarmed. These things must happen, but the end is still to come. He didn't speak to scare us. He spoke to prepare our hearts, not to build bomb shelters, but to build faith, awareness, and reverent obedience. This world will continue to shake. There will be more wars. More prophecies will be fulfilled. But in the storm, the Bible never points to fear as our refuge. It always points to one place, Jesus Christ. If you're looking for peace, not the kind promised by the UN or declared by ceasefires, but the kind that surpasses all understanding, then return to the one who was nailed to the cross. He promised, in this world you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. John 16:33. Whether Iran builds the bomb, whether Israel is surrounded, whether Jerusalem becomes the center of world tension, those who belong to God are never hopeless, because in the end, Jerusalem is not the end. It's the beginning of an eternal kingdom. Dear friend, if you've stayed with this video until now, allow yourself a pause, not to turn off the screen, but to pray. Pray for peace in the Middle East, that both Jews and Arabs would open their hearts to the gospel, and that your soul may rest in the unchanging truth of God. And if you want to keep discovering the hidden prophecies, the spiritual truths behind global headlines, then subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because there is so much the Bible is saying that the world has yet to hear. See you in the next video, and never forget, even if war begins, hope never ends. With God.